So good morning and thank you all for coming. My name is Brian Sampson. I'm the Executive Director of Unshackle Upstate. We have said for years that New York State is not a financially safe state at the moment. We have high spending and high taxes, and those things need to change. New York is one of the highest tax states in the country. We continually rank first in categories where we'd like to be last, and last in categories where we need to be first. The nickel and dime taxation has got to stop. In last year's budget, the average family of four will pay $1,300 more in taxes and fees and get nothing else for it. The personal income tax increase of $4 billion put a stranglehold on our small businesses, those that are truly creating jobs in our economy. So this is not a revenue issue in the state of New York, but a spending issue. That is why earlier this year we introduced a plan to right-size the state budget by 2015. Based on our plan, the state budget in that year will be $109 billion, not the currently proposed $134 billion. To help, we gave the state and our elected officials the first $12 billion in cuts that they can enact to start right-sizing our budget. We're here today to tell all New York State taxpayers that we have to demand more of our elected officials if we are going to get the changes that we need, and we make those demands now. Taxpayers have elected their state representatives because they believe that that individual will fight for their rights. But what happens when the vast majority of our elected officials are no longer fighting for the taxpayers, the job creators, and the voters? That is why we are here today. New Yorkers have had enough of the nickel and diming, and we can no longer afford the status quo in the state. Today we are introducing what we call the scorecard. It's a Judgment Day primer for voters. The scorecard will track the actions of lawmakers through the current budget process and through the end of the legislative session. It will provide New Yorkers with information on how each of the 212 legislators voted on various pro-taxpayer and job creator legislation. The scorecard is broken up into 4 parts that will provide legislators with a potential grade of 100. The bulk of the scorecard is based on legislative votes and specific bills that are important to us in Unshackle Upstate and to you as taxpayers in the state. We'll also look at advocacy on specific legislative bills, as well as how they vote on the budget. The final component of the scorecard looks at the type of bills and legislation that will continue to hinder our growth and how elected officials work on those bills. We firmly believe at the end of the legislative session, the scorecard will identify to New York State residents the good elected officials that have made the right decision to help the voters of this state, to help our economy recover. But this scorecard is only one piece of a larger campaign, a campaign to grow our Unshackle Army, to provide a rallying cry for all New Yorkers that believe that their government has abandoned them. Today, we are declaring November 2nd, 2010 as Judgment Day for state legislators. November 2nd is the day that all of us have the opportunity to enact our version of term limits by voting for people that believe in us, that believe in our economy, and want to be partners in the recovery of the state of New York. Judgment Day is when we go to the polls and send a very clear message to each and every state legislator that scored poorly on our scorecard, that this is our state and we will be taking it back. But we know that talk is cheap, and at the end of the day, we need the people of this state to get involved, go to the polls, and cast their vote on November 2nd. It's time for all of us to get off the couch, to stop being a Monday morning quarterback, and get in the game. Today, we ask all of our fellow residents in the state of New York to join the Unshackle Army as we move toward the Capitol, demanding that we get the changes that we need now,